9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. The big story we've been tracking is what's going on in Tripura. And after a series of incidents that were reported several weeks ago that became a big story, yesterday, all the action was in Agartala. The civic body polls in Tripura are actually scheduled to take place on November 25th. So obviously there is a lot of political activity that is going on. And unfortunately, there were also instances of violence and vandalism that were reported yesterday again. And that is what we're going to talk about. Let me first tell you what the setup is. Yesterday, TMC MP Sushmita Dev made allegations that they were attacked by the BJP during campaign. TMC leader Saayoni Ghosh, who was passing by Tripura Chief Minister's event, was arrested. She was arrested on charges of attempt to murder, where the police claims that she tried to run over people. The TMC claims that she only made some comments that did not go down well with the BJP, and she was arrested for that. She's been released on bail today. But that's where things got really ugly. There are a bunch of TMC leaders and workers who were taken away and taken to the police station. They claim even in the police station, they were not safe and they were actually beaten. That's their claim. The BJP, of course, has been denying any role in this violence. Now, while these incidents were getting reported, even the media wasn't spared yesterday. The media actually also had to bear the brunt of an extremely uncontrolled mob in Agartala. Journalists who were covering this entire political series of events were beaten and abused. One of them badly injured with a head injury and blood on his face. This is what happened yesterday. This morning, a suspicious bag at the airport triggered a bomb scare. Misinformation was spread around. Then came the news that TMC's Abhishek Banerjee has been denied permission to hold a rally in Agartala, where the police said, we are not allowing anybody to hold large political rallies because there is so much of tension in Agartala because of the recent violence that's taken place. We cannot allow. You can do a small event, but they haven't gotten back to us as to when that will happen. The fight was then taken from Agartala and Tripura all the way to the national capital. TMC MPs protested outside the Home Ministry, insisted that Home Minister Amit Shah meet them. And that happened. We are now given to understand that Mamata Banerjee will also be meeting Prime Minister Modi on November 24th. Violence, attacks, vandalism, media being targeted. This is what is going on. In fact, we also spoke with the journalist who was attacked, and he said that I was here covering the events. They asked me which media organization are you from. They called me a dalal, and then they started beating me up. Nearly 200 people, he said, wore helmets, carried hockey sticks and rods, and that they started beating people outside the police station. The mob entered the police station, vandalized and beat up people there, including cops. That boom mics of various channels were also broken down. What is going on? This level of violence ahead of civic body elections? Let's talk about it. Papaya Datta, State General Secretary for BJP in Tripura, joins me this evening. Professor Om Prakash Mishra, spokesperson for TMC. Sanjeet Dev, editor for Northeast Color, and Suvir Bhaumik, senior journalist, also joining me this evening. And let me actually start off by trying to put some context here. Mr. Bhaumik, let's begin by explaining to people what may be going on, the kind of tension, clashes, challenges that we saw between TMC and BJP during Bengal elections seems to be now getting repeated in a role reversal order in Tripura. Would that be correct?
Well, you can say that for the sake of, creating an interest in the story. But, how can somebody justify that somebody beat me up in Bengal, so I'm going to beat up his mother in Tripura? I mean, come on, that's no logic, basically. But the fact here is that the BJP and the Trinamool, both the parties actually don't have much of a political base in Tripura. They are new to Tripura. Tripura has been, like the Bengal of old, a Congress communist battle zone. And the people you see in Trinamool today, or the people you see in BJP, are largely people who come from Congress, a couple of them from the left, but not much from the left. Basically, it's the old Congress sort of, churning that's split into these three different groups. The thing here is, stakes are high. The BJP came to power in Tripura 3 years ago. State elections are 2 years away. But there's civic body elections, 20 civic bodies, 20 urban sort of municipal bodies. This is seen as some kind of a semi-final, and therefore the BJP is determined to win as many of these as possible. And the Trinamool, after their victory in Bengal, they are emboldened. They think they can make an impact. Tripura, like Bengal, where Tripura is a Bengali majority state, 70% Bengali population, and therefore, traditionally the impact of Bengal has there been on Tripura all the time. Please recall that in 77, 78, when the left first came to power in Bengal, within a few months, the left came to power in Tripura. So, basically there is an effect, the Bengal effect. Not so much the Assam effect. Assam is neighbor of Tripura, but not so much the Assam effect. Where Tripura always has the Bengal effect. So the BJP is understandably worried, and therefore they're desperate to hold on to something that they got, a couple of 3 years back. This is number one. So the stakes are high for the BJP, and the stakes are high for Trinamool, because if there is one state outside Bengal where they can make an immediate impact, that's Tripura. Goes without saying. They don't have much of an existing base there, but they expect a lot of people to come over, the Bengal effect, as I said, and therefore they're banking on much to happen from their side. And violence, let me remind you, it is not something new in Tripura. When I first came into journalism in the 1980s, and Sanjeev, my good friend on the program here, would recall, there were CPIM MLA who was murdered, Gautam Datta in Vishalgarh used to be a battle zone, and then Parimal Shah. So, MLAs have been murdered in political violence, not insurgent violence. That's different. Yeah, so Tripura has a tradition of violence, like Bengal has. So what you see unfolding on ground Tripura, you can call it a reputation of Bengal in some ways, but, this is worse actually, because I have never, in my 35 years of journalism, seen, this kind of urgency and fighting over municipal elections in Tripura. And Sanjeev will bear me out. Agartala municipal elections and all these other municipal, you've never seen these kind of problems.
Yeah.
The stakes are high, and that's showing. And also because a lot of people feel on the either side of the political divide that this is some kind of a semi-final, and that lends urgency to this whole drama.
The elections in the state will be held in 2023. And all of this excitement that we're looking at right now are actually about the civic body elections. But it's unfortunate, it's unacceptable. And you're right, Mr. Bhaumik, political violence in West Bengal, in Tripura may not be new. But it should, instead of reducing and stopping, it's actually continuing and maybe worsening in some parts as well. Mr. Sanjeev Dev, would you like to come in on this and explain to the rest of India what is going on?
The situation in Tripura, I can say, because in Tripura the traditional political situation was as it was a left non-left equation was for a long time in Tripura. But for last 3-4 years, the things has changed. The BJP has entered into this and they won the election in 1980 and formed the government. And only 3 years, but they are yet to concretize their base in Tripura. They are just building an organization base. On the other hand, the Trinamool, have entered into Tripura, trying to influence the people of the state, but they don't have any organizational base or any face to project that who is there. Under this situation, both the parties are thinking of freedom. It appears that the present tension is out of this due to this lack of confidence. They are trying to force their apply force to create some position in this election, and now both the sides are fighting each other for this.
Mr. Dev, we're going to try and fix try and get a better line with you and fix that audio line. It's a little patchy right now, but I get the point that you're making about Trinamool that doesn't have a very big base trying to grow there and challenging the established political parties.
But the BJP, Tanvi, did not have a base at all actually before the 2018 election.
Correct.
Except Biplab Dev, who comes from the RSS stable. The rest of these BJP people are mostly ex-Congress.
Yeah.
Same with the Tesi Assam. The chief minister of Assam, he's an ex-congressman. So, the BJP also in Tripura never had a traditional Sangh base, as you can call it. So, all these people are basically from the former Congress stable. The fact that many of these Congress leaders went over to the BJP was because they thought that their prime opposition, CPM, can be better fought if they go and join the BJP, because their leadership in Delhi was close to the left leadership. So that's the dynamics in Tripura. I mean, the BJP never had a great base in Tripura, regardless of all the factors of partition and everything else.
Okay.
Never had a real base in Tripura.
Right, no, absolutely. In Northeast, they've only grown in the last few years, Tripura being also one of those states. But let me bring in Om Prakash Mishra. Mr. Mishra, is this what you're going to expect everywhere, wherever TMC wants to gain a foothold and establish its strength through a path of violence and face-off?
Tanvi, your question is misdirected, I'm sorry to say. Mr. Bhaumik has very correctly contextualized the entire scenario. BJP never have had a single MLA in Tripura before their splendid victory in 2018. Now the question is that, in fact, Trinamool went to Tripura much before BJP did. Of course, we did not succeed. Now, for the last 5 to 6 months' time, we have decided to, and with lot of public support, we are marching ahead. There are 3 aspects to the violence that is unfolding. You may have done 1 or 2 programs that 102 people, including journalists, including Supreme Court lawyers, they have been imposed, they have been booked under UAPA. And there has been a very ugly attempt on the part of the BJP administration to bring in communalization of Tripura. And this is a national issue, and entire country has protested, including our party. Second is that Trinamool Congress is not the only political party which is being attacked. I must name the youth leader, Saayoni Ghosh. She was arrested today. Police had visited the hotel yesterday. She was arrested today, and BJP people, they actually attacked the police station also. I should also mention that just because Abhishek Banerjee would like to do Padayatra in Agartala, so therefore entire Agartala was put under section 144 for close to 2 months. And yes, today also, his announced program could not be organized at the last minute because the administration would not permit. So therefore, the BJP is afraid. I must also add that CPIM offices have been attacked, ransacked. CPM people have also been beaten up. And nobody is pointing out that 35% of the constituencies, these have been, BJP has been elected unopposed. They have not allowed others to file nomination. So there is a reign of terror. And Supreme Court has also said that the political parties must be given their due share so far as the campaigning is concerned. But just see, we are a political party. We are not going to give up.
But
That
you
is
see,
why
Mr.
Amit
Om
Shah
Prakash
was
Mishra,
forced to
you are
give up
right.
time.
Mr. Mishra, you are right. The Supreme, because, I've heard this quite a few times today, that the Supreme Court has told the state and the state police to ensure that the political parties are able to get their message out and that they should not be stopped. Yet look what the police is doing. But if we actually look at the order, I'm sure that the government and the police is going to turn around and say, well, when it comes to law and order, we have to take these decisions. For example, in Saayoni Ghosh's case, they say that she tried to run over people. There is an attempt to murder charge, and that's why she was arrested and put behind bars until she actually got bail today. Let me actually read out from the order. Since the election process has commenced, it is bounden obligation of the respondents to ensure that no political party which is in the fray is prevented from pursuing its electoral rights in accordance with law and from campaigning in a peaceful and orderly manner. Mr. Mishra, the argument from the Tripura government and the police's side is it is not in an orderly manner. They're only taking action where they fear a law and order issue, where there is tension, and any event will add to the tension, which is why it cannot be allowed.
Brutality against the TMC leaders and supporters and the candidates, every day brutality is taking place. At least 19 candidates of Trinamool Congress, they have been attacked by the BJP and the police have not taken any action. And what Saayoni Ghosh has done, he said, Khala hobe. So Prime Minister also had said, Khala hobe. Should an FIR be lodged against the Prime Minister? And here is a spirited young leader who is trying to galvanize her party into action in relationship to participation in the election. And you are trying to block her. You are trying to, vilify her. You are trying to impose cases. You know how many court cases has been imposed against Mr. Kunal Ghosh? How many cases have been imposed against Mr. Abhishek Banerjee, who is a two-time member of the Lok Sabha? Yeah. How come that Abhishek Banerjee is not allowed to address a single public meeting for 2 months? So BJP is frightened. And Trinamool is a very determined political party.
Okay.
We are not a political party which is going to, just get away. So therefore, we have forced the Home Minister of the country to meet us and to meet our demand. And we are going to keep the pressure on the BJP's administration, which is very malicious and which actually is very violence prone. They have attacked the CPIM. They are attacking the TMC. They are attacking the minorities. They are booking the journalists under Trump-up charges. We as a political party, we are not going to give up. We are going to keep on putting up the pressure and we are going to oust the BJP from the reins of power that they have been enjoying past 3 years.
Okay, I will get, once the BJP is with us, unfortunately we have some technical issues in connecting Mr. Navendu Bhattacharya, and when he does, I will get him to respond to you. But let me see if we can, if I can hear Mr. Sanjeev Dev better. Mr. Dev, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Dev, if I had to ask you to explain the current scenario and the political scenario that has been building in Tripura over the last few months, to explain to the rest of the country as to how the current Chief Minister runs this regime and whether there is a significant concern about a big challenger coming through in these civic body elections, because like we were just pointing out, almost a third of the seats have already been won by BJP completely unchallenged.
The he has assumed office only 3 years ago, and he has show some he will make this model state by 2022, and that will see is going to. You can say that he has succeeded in all spheres, and the problem is this: at this time, this due to coronavirus and other problems, the development process was hindered in many places. That's why there is some lacunas, obviously, on the part of this government. So far, development is concerned. When there is some sincere efforts are there, it is visible, but the thing is this, politically, party is yet to establish its base, solid base here because of the only 3 days ago this party has come into Tripura and they have started organizing things. And all the members of this party came from other political parties. So they are yet to find a very solid ground where they build. Though of course they have set up some organizational setup. They have already created, but they are yet to fully foolproof. On the other hand, the Trinamool Congress, they have come in Tripura earlier twice, 2 or 3 times, but they have failed in previous occasions. This time, they seem to be a little bit determined to have some foothold in this state. And since both these parties are trying to make a solid ground in this Tripura, but both of them have their organizationally they are not so much confident. That's this lack of confidence is gradually getting into violent actions. That's the problem here. One thing is
Right. Okay, fair enough what you're explaining here. And I want to take it a step further with Mr. Subir Bhaumik as well, Mr. Bhaumik. Can we then say that as wrong as it may be, one can expect things to get only ugly from here on as these two political parties, fight to get a foothold and gain their influence in Tripura?
Well, in the next 2 days, I would imagine things would get worse unless, the Home Ministry put its foot down and ask the state government to, take charge of the situation and to get things under control. This violence is largely political. So controlling this violence depends on political will. My good friend OP will agree with me that, since the violence is largely political, if there is a political will, it can be controlled. And this largely depends on how secure. Sanjeev was making a good point that insecurity, leads to violence. And therefore, I also argued that this was the point. I just want to figure out from Sanjeev, if he's still there, and his name is Sanjeev Dev and not Sanjeev. Anyway, because he's an old friend of mine. Is Saayoni Ghosh released on bail? Because I just saw a flash in the Facebook, and I'm not a great votary of the social media, so I don't like story to be put out just because somebody has flashed something on Facebook. Or if OP knows, has Saayoni Ghosh been released on bail? Because if she's released on bail, that's important. That's an interesting sort of development. Because
yes, she is. She has been given bail.
We have been able to achieve bail for Saayoni Ghosh, and in fact, we were very persistent. Group of lawyers represented her. She was attempted to be, attacked inside the police station. Yesterday, flouting all regulations, police attempted to raid the hotel. And as you know, that the Trinamool Congress leaders, they were not even allowed hotel stay. That was at a point of time. And Abhishek Banerjee, why BJP is so much fearful of Trinamool? And they have actually now the CPIM, 6 CPIM candidates they had to withdraw. But in spite of all the violence that has been unleashed against the Trinamool, we are staying put. 51 candidates, Agartala, Trinamool is fighting. And of course, we do not know what is going to be the result. But why is Biplab Dev so very much fearful? Why he would not allow us to participate? Here they have, in Bengal, they have a free reign. Entire country they are having free reign. It is a different matter that in May, they had about 38% or 39% vote in Bengal. In the by-election in 2 phases, actually their vote percentage has come down to just about 15-16. So BJP is actually very fragile. The way that they entered Tripura, they might actually also be exiting Tripura. That is why they are attacking Trinamool. Earlier they were attacking the CPIM. But this cannot go on. We are a determined party. We are a young party, but very organized, very determined, having a cohesive leadership, and we are going to stay there.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have the BJP to give their version, but I do agree with you on one aspect, Mr. Mishra. I don't know if the current Chief Minister is scared of the TMC or what the reason is, but there are many questions that he must answer on the kind of action that has been taken against journalists, against lawyers, against political workers in the last several weeks. And while nobody will say that it is okay to spread fake news, it is okay to incite people or to spread propaganda, but to unabashedly and so brazenly, in a widespread manner, use the law and the law enforcement agencies to go after people will have to be answered. And maybe the Supreme Court will ask that question. The Supreme Court had to tell the state to allow politicians to campaign. All those who are participating in these elections should at least be allowed to campaign. Imagine that. It had to be said. That hearing comes up again tomorrow in the Supreme Court, and we'll wait and watch what happens. There's also more political meetings lined up. We also want to know who did this. The BJP says we did it. The TMC says we were attacked. The police says we're looking into it. The police at one point wanted the journalists out of the place, but when the journalists themselves were attacked, nobody came to save them. Journalists got beaten up by this mob. Who was this mob? And why was it allowed to run ruckus, to run amok, to beat up people, to vandalize the property, to even get inside a police station? It's been over 24 hours, 36 hours now, since these instances were reported in Agartala, in the capital of Tripura, 2 days ahead of big elections. Can they not tell us? Can they still not find out who did this? Are they again going to instead go after people who are putting a post on social media rather than telling us who's the actual set of people indulging in vandalism and violence? That the government and the police must answer. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.